What's up, guys? I'm Pete Mundo. Thanks for checking out our video. This is a YouTube-only video. We still have the podcast. Go find it, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, but we're just rolling out some of these now on YouTube only. So let's give you over-unders in the Big 12 Conference. We'll go from the team with the highest win total to the team with the lowest win total. You can, I'm sure, guess each of those. Let's start with the Oklahoma Sooners. We have the over 10.5 or under 10.5. I'm going under 10.5 wins for the Oklahoma Sooners. And it's not that this team can't go 11-1. They could. I just think that it's a lot to ask of Lincoln Riley and this offense to only lose one game in the regular season again with another new quarterback in Jalen Hurts, who I know played at Alabama, who I know led this team back from a deficit against Georgia in the SEC title game. I know he's had success, but I just question whether or not Jalen Hurts can duplicate what Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray did. And the defense is a work in progress, and the offensive line has a lot of talent, but they're replacing 4 or 5 guys. I think it's a 10-2 team. I really do. But I don't see it being an 11-1 team. When the middle of the Big 12 continues to improve with Iowa State, Baylor, TCU, I have a hard time seeing OU not slipping up twice along the way. You know, don't forget about Texas, of course. There's not that big Power 5 non-conference game. UCLA, they should roll over. But it's just the kind of schedule where I'm saying 10-2 feels more likely than 11-1. So I'm taking the under on OU at 10.5. Let's go to the Texas Longhorns. The number for Texas is 9.5. And here's my deal with Texas. I'm going under as well. You have a very tough non-conference game against LSU, right? That's in week 2. On top of that, when you look at Texas's schedule, you go on the road, TCU, Iowa State, Baylor. That is that second tier in the Big 12. Texas has all of those games on the road. OU is always in the neutral site in Dallas. So of their 4 toughest games in the conference, none of them are in their home stadium. That is difficult. That is really difficult for anybody. Never mind a Texas team that lost its best wide receiver, that lost 8 defensive starters. There's a lot there that we have question marks about, and I think the Texas hype is building up too much. At 8.5, I may take the over. At 9.5, Texas still has a great shot to win 9 games. They might have a shot at 10, but I feel much more confident taking the under with Texas at 9.5 games. Iowa State over-under set at 8. I'm going over. I'm going over with the Cyclones. There's a couple reasons for this. First off, I think Iowa State's going to be playing for a Big 12 championship game in December. I feel pretty good about that. Now, they have the Iowa game in week 3, and it's an Iowa team that Matt Campbell has yet to beat. But if there's ever a time that he's going to do it, he should have beat them 2 years ago in that shootout that went to overtime. Last year was a mess. They had the opening week game that was canceled. They had offensive quarterback issues. If Brock Purdy's playing in that game last year, I think they win it, to be honest. So I think this is the year in Ames that Iowa State gets over the hump against Iowa. And then you're looking at a situation where 5-4 in the Big 12 gets you a push. It gets you a push. 6-3 gets you an easy win. And I think Iowa State could be looking at 7-2 if everything falls right into their laps. So they have they have Oklahoma and Texas back-to-back weeks. That's tough. But Texas is at home. Oklahoma's on the road. Hey, OU on the road was no problem last year. So I'm taking Iowa State over the 8 for win totals. TCU, the over-under is 7.5. I'm going over for TCU as well. Classic, underrated program, undervalued team. Don't know what they're doing at quarterback yet, but the defense is the real deal. Offensive line is good. Running back has a great 1-2 punch in Anderson and Alana Lua. Say that one 10 times in a row. I think you have the best player in the Big 12 at wide receiver in Jalen Reagor. If anybody can get him the ball, he's an absolute stud. Go on the road to Purdue. That's a tricky game. But look at what TCU's got. You have Iowa State game, 10-5, October 5th, which is difficult. But that game is going into a bye. And then their other toughest games against OU and Texas, you go into those games with a game against Kansas State and a game against Texas Tech. The schedule is pretty well balanced. Iowa State, tough game. Bye week, Kansas State, Texas. Oklahoma State, I think they'll have a down year. Then you play Baylor, one of your, if not your biggest rival. Then it's Texas Tech, and then it's Oklahoma. You close it out with West Virginia. It's very balanced. There's not that 3 to 4 game stretch. That's an absolute gauntlet. They mix up road and home pretty well. So the schedule favors TCU, and the fact that they're generally underrated is why I'm taking TCU at over 7.5. Baylor, the number is also 7.5, and I'm going over. First off, the non-conference is a joke. They'll be 3-0. Stephen F. Austin, UTSA, Rice. I mean, it's comical. And then you look at what they've got. OU and Texas are both at home and no West Virginia on the road. Now, West Virginia should have a down year, but anytime you can avoid the trip to Morgantown, you're in good shape. You're in very good shape, and that's the situation Baylor finds itself in. Baylor fans absolutely love the odd-year schedule because you get OU and Texas at home, and that in and of itself is a great situation for the Baylor Bears. Your other tough games, Iowa State is at home. It's a good deal. It's a very manageable schedule for Baylor, and for Matt Rule to build on what this team did a year ago, getting the 7 wins. I like the over 7.5 for the Baylor Bears. Now, Oklahoma State, the number is 7. I'm going under. I would take a push, but you didn't come here for softball opinions, right? But I like the number 7. But basically what this comes down to is I feel more confident in 6-6 for Oklahoma State than I do 8-4. That's just the reality. And I look at Oklahoma State's schedule, and I'm saying to myself, with what this quarterback situation is, and we don't know what it is yet. We have no idea. Yes, you got great skill position players. I think you improved on offensive line just by getting in, the new coach from Kansas State. Jim Knowles, can he figure it out year 2 on defense in the Big 12? He struggled last year in that spot. You can't deny it. But the schedule is as such where Oregon State on a Friday night to open up the season should be a win. But Friday night game, deep into Pac-12 country, opening up the season with a quarterback who's never done it in your program, who the heck knows what can happen? Seriously, who the heck knows what's going to happen in that game? Anyone that tells you they're confident is not telling the truth. They're just not. And then you have a situation where you open up Big 12 play at Texas. You played them close. You beat them last year. You played them close the past couple of years. But it's a tough game. It's a tough game to start off Big 12 play. And then from there, all right, you end the season home against Oklahoma. You haven't beaten Oklahoma all year. In Mike Gundy's tenure, you haven't beaten Oklahoma. So it's just difficult. You got to go on the road to Iowa State. You have a gauntlet 3-game stretch. Baylor, Iowa State, TCU, back-to-back-to-back weeks with no bye in there. That is tough because that's the competition you're looking at in that second tier in the Big 12 to be a part of that. So I think Oklahoma State's looking at the under 7 this fall. Texas Tech, the number is 6. I'm going over. I love the number 6, but once again, my job is to give you an over-under. I like Texas Tech at the over 6. This team is underrated in terms of the talent that's bringing back. If Alan Bowman doesn't get hurt at the end of last year, Cliff Kingsbury is still the head coach. He's not the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. He's still the head coach of the Texas Tech Red Raiders, of his alma mater. If Alan Bowman doesn't get banged up and a couple of other injuries take place. So Texas Tech team has more talent on both sides of the ball than it's given credit for. I like Matt Wells. I like his coaching staff. Bowman, if he's healthy, I think he's going to put up some really big numbers. Offensive line has a lot of returning players on it, a lot of returning starts on that offensive line as well. And the defense is underrated. At every level, it's underrated. So I'm going over with the Texas Tech team. I think they'll beat Arizona in non-conference play on the road, and that gives you a little leeway on that over-under number of 6. Kansas State at 5.5, I'm going over for Chris Klieman in Kansas State. Yes, I have serious concerns at these skill positions, but Skylar Thompson, I think, is going to end up as one of the upper half quarterbacks in the Big 12 Conference this fall. Loves Chris Klieman. He seems loose. He seems more comfortable than he ever did before under Bill Snyder. And I think you're going to see a different guy at that spot. I like the defensive line a lot. And there is just reason to believe that Klieman can get this team bowling. Not much more than that, but I think they can get to that 6-win mark. So I feel pretty good about Kansas State over 5.5. West Virginia, the number is 5 for the Mountaineers. I am going under, mostly because of that non-conference slate. At Missouri, home to NC State. And then you have James Madison, a really good FCS program. They're going to be wiped by the time they get to Big 12 play in a rebuilding year with a new head coach. It just feels like a 4-8 season for West Virginia. I still have total confidence in Neil Brown. I think he's going to do really good things for this team and for this program. But I'm looking at this and I'm saying I can't find 6 wins. I cannot find 6 wins for the Mountaineers on this year's team. So I am taking the under on West Virginia, especially when these 2 non-conference Power 5 games are going to be with a quarterback who hasn't played in 3-4 years, whether it's Austin Kendall or Jack Allison, when you talk about meaningful games and a meaningful stretch and meaningful snaps. So West Virginia, I'm going under 5. Kansas, the number's 3, going under. 4 wins. You can't find 4 wins. Best case scenario is a push. You beat Indiana State, you beat Coastal, you lose at Boston College, and you knock off one Big 12 team by happenstance. That's a best case scenario. That's 3 wins. You cannot find 4 wins on the schedule for KU. So I'm going under 3 for the Jayhawks. Sorry, Les Miles. Sorry, KU fans. But as a result, that gives me OU under, Texas under, Iowa State over, TCU over, Baylor over, Oklahoma State under, Texas Tech over, Kansas State over, West Virginia under, and Kansas under. So I have 5 unders, 5 overs. There you have it for the Big 12 for the upcoming season. Please go check out the podcast, however you get your podcast. You leave us a rating and a review as well. Send me a screenshot of that rating and review to Pete Mundo, Mundo, at heartlandcollegesports.com, and I'll get you a free Heartland College Sports koozie in the mail. So I will do that for you if you go check out our podcast. We got a lot more content over there. We have guests as well. We had Phil Steele on a couple of weeks ago of Phil Steele's college football magazine fame. We had the guys from the Solid Verbal podcast on last week. So great stuff on the podcast. It's really blowing up. Please go check it out. I'm Pete Mundo. HeartlandCollegeSports.com is our independent Big 12 digital media outlet. Appreciate you guys joining us here on YouTube. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon. Hit that subscribe button. Thanks, guys.